King County's Office of Risk Management Services helps agencies in the executive branch, legislative branch, and separately elected offices as they seek to make King County a welcoming place where everyone can thrive. You can see our contact information on the bottom right corner of the screen here. We look forward to hearing from you. In this video, we're going to talk about King County's risk culture, also how we identify, understand, and address the risks that we own in King County. We'll also talk about our insurance and how accidents and claims work. At the end of this discussion, of course, we'll be able to describe and communicate our approach to risk management broadly. We'll be able to talk about the tools that you have, the resources at your disposal, specifically for your risk management needs, and we'll be able to help you guide your risk-related decision-making for the work that you do and answer any questions that employees or customers may have, especially about claims and accidents. We have a wide range of diverse operations here in King County. Clockwise from the top left, we have wastewater treatment, the courthouse, metro transit, road services, law enforcement, solid waste management, and parks and recreation. There's many more operations not shown here, such as public health, community and human services, adult and juvenile detention, and several more. As you can imagine, the risks we own across these operations are broad and complex. But what do we mean by that term risk? Often we think of risks as just something that can lead to an injury, such as a slip and fall at one of our facilities, or something causing damage to property, like a fender bender collision between two vehicles. And it's true that these are examples of risk. They often arise from safety hazards, and they cause real harm to the people we serve. And the resolution of these matters can involve litigation and significant financial costs. But we also have to think about risks more broadly than this. So for the sake of this discussion, we're going to define risk as uncertainty affecting our objectives. Now, with that frame of reference in mind, it's no surprise that our approach to risk management must do more than simply buy insurance and pay for claims. We do that, of course, and we do it well, but it can't be all that we do. So one of the tools that we use to discuss this approach is called the risk value curve, which we'll cover next. In general, risk aversion, that notion that we should avoid as much risk as possible, comes from a familiar feeling that as you take on more risk, you experience more harm and less good stuff happens. An organization that with this approach would want to take on as little risk as possible in order to create the most value for its stakeholders, in our case, the people who live, work, and visit in King County. For some organizations, this works. And for those organizations, risk management is often known as the department to approach if you want to hear no as an answer for your question. Risk managers often take a conservative and risk-averse approach with new ideas and change. And that feeling is often valid. It's born out of experience and loss. But that isn't us in King County, at least not anymore. This diagram comes from the Consortium for Advanced Management International, and King County contributed to its development. It depicts the relationship between risk and value. Now, in the first zone, risk is low, but so is value. The organization in this case has placed too much emphasis on mitigation or avoidance of risks. In this zone, we're very likely to miss opportunities that can make a positive difference for the communities we serve. And our organization in this first zone is inefficient, likely prioritizing strict compliance and risk mitigation over opportunity and value creation. In the second zone, risk is optimized. That's that green bar there. The organization is taking on risks up to its tolerance level and maximizing value. Once the high point of this curve has been passed, organizations are in a high risk interaction zone, and key risk indicators become extremely important. Now, what that means is that we need to actively look for the things that tell us that something is about to go wrong and act to rein in that excess risk exposure. So when we're in that sort of yellow zone there. In that last red zone, the organization may be in crisis mode and should actively seek risk management tools like insurance, crisis management, public relations to pull itself out of the crisis and into a more optimized state. Now, this is all great as a concept, but let's make it real with an example from our colleagues in public health, Seattle and King County. Now, for decades, public health has offered internships to college students in various medical fields. In order to participate in an internship, the student's college or university had to agree to the insurance and indemnification requirements in King County's contract. One clause required the educational institution to indemnify King County for the negligent acts of their student interns. So, if that intern caused some sort of liability, the educational institution would pay for that. Now, four-year universities would agree to the language and agree to all those contracting requirements, but two-year community colleges would not. Now, public health looked at the demographics of students who attended four-year universities and students in two-year programs through an equity lens. With this perspective, public health decided it was time to reevaluate their internship program and asked the risk management office for assistance. Now, the team looked at where the internship policy was on the risk value curve. And in this case, it was in the inefficient phase. The risk was low, but so was the value. And where they wanted to be, a more optimal position of increased risk, but also probably added value. So King County convened a working group of risk management, attorneys, representatives from public health, human resources, and clinical staff to review past loss history related to interns. We analyzed the contracting requirements, and King County attorneys contacted two-year college attorneys to understand why they're not able to meet those contracting requirements in the past. The working group also reviewed the organization's mission, our vision, our core values, which of course include equity and opportunity. And we concluded that the internship policy requirements were not aligned with our values. So the demographics of students who attend two-year colleges and the county's commitment to equity and opportunity, those were out of sync. Two-year colleges were much more likely to be diverse than a four-year university. Now, after analyzing past losses caused by student interns, the value to be gained by developing students' interest in public health as a career, and the additional risk to King County from eliminating those indemnity protections, everyone agreed to take on this additional risk in pursuit of this value. Now, King County amended our contract, eliminating the requirement that two-year colleges indemnify King County for the negligent acts of their student interns, and thereby really transferring that risk to King County. So, under King County's historic view of risk as something to avoid, risk optimization would not have resonated with leaders in public health. The county was in that insufficient risk appetite zone of the curve, giving too much weight to a possible negative outcome and not looking at the value or potential value that could be created by expanding public health internship opportunities. So, broadly, our approach here is to help the county create and protect value by managing risk, making decisions, and setting and achieving objectives and improving performance. Now, what all this means is that an issue which might keep us from meeting the goals of our core priorities of equity and social justice and the strategic plan for that, that's a significant risk. And the same for a barrier to implementing our strategic climate action plan. We consider risks in terms of health and safety, and also in terms of whether events can disrupt our operations or affect how our workforce stays engaged and satisfied with their work. A risk could affect our reputation, such as something affecting the trust and confidence our community has in us as their local government. And while we're considering the potential financial costs, we also want to consider the potential actions of oversight bodies and other compliance related needs. It sounds complex, and it is, but we have the tools and documents and resources to help you through this. And through all of this complexity, we need to consider that not all risk is bad. We sometimes need to take on more risk to get a job done or to achieve an important objective. There's also oftentimes risk in inaction or maintaining the status quo. We live and operate in a dynamic, complex environment, and we need to be able to embrace change and sometimes risk in order to meet our goals. So, managing risk is iterative. We identify issues, consider our options for addressing them, choose a strategy, implement it, and then see if it works. And then we do it again when a new issue comes up or if an existing approach needs some adjustment. You might already be familiar with this approach as lean or plan, do, check, adjust. Risk management is also a key part of governance and leadership. These practices that we're talking about here help decide which strategies we take broadly and inform the decisions we need to make along the way. It's really part of everything we do, including our interactions with stakeholders. You see, sharing power is one of the key compacts in fostering equity and social justice, especially racial justice. And historically, institutions like local government, including specifically King County government, have had difficulty taking that leap and making that progress when it's meant sharing power. It can feel risky, but it's exactly the kind of practice we need to make more common if we're going to meet our goals in these areas. Now, we also need to consider the external and internal context of the county, including human behavior and cultural factors. It's historically common that local government and other public institutions don't necessarily attract employees who are eager to take on risk, and institutions that have their own momentum can be hard to change. We recognize this in our approach, even as we seek to change it. So, with those concepts firmly in your mind, let's talk about how you can make this approach to risk real in your own daily work. Some of the tools available to you include the executive branch's risk appetite statement and potentially the risk appetite statement of your specific department. Risk profiles or other ways to identify and prioritize risks owned in your area of responsibility, as well as the county's enterprise risk register. Those are tools available as well. They collect those highest level risks across the county in our wide ranging and diverse operations. And also, the Office of Risk Management Services administers what's called the Loss Control Fund. That helps agencies with emerging risks. So we'll talk about each of these in a little more detail here. So, a risk appetite articulates the degree of risk King County is willing to seek or accept in pursuit of our long term objectives. It guides decision makers. It indicates where we should seek change and be innovative, and where we should be more conservative or conventional, and where decisions or notifications need to be raised to senior management. Now, King County's risk appetite in each key risk area is characterized on this 5 point scale from risk averse to risk seeking. Let's talk about what our actual appetite looks like, though. This guides staff regarding the amounts of risk and the types of risk that we're willing to accept as we pursue these opportunities. So, county decision makers, and that includes the person looking at this video, should use it to inform how they assess and respond to risks. It articulates our willingness to accept risk and making decisions regarding these 8 key risk areas, which I'll define for you here. So, equity for us means fair access to opportunities, power, and resources needed to achieve one's full potential. Health and safety is defined as hazards or actions which may lead to harm to employees or the public. Our strategy area here is our strategic priorities, planning, leadership, allocating resources, responding to changes. When we talk about finance, what we're talking about there are financial practices, levies, taxes, bonds, reserves, revenue, and financial audit findings. When we talk about operations, that's customer service, procedures, systems, business practices, and policies. Our workforce area here really is about recruiting, hiring, succession, employee development, discipline, labor relations. When we talk about reputation, that's our public's perception, our confidence, trust, and customer experience, and their support for King County. And then when we look at compliance, that's that action or inaction which may conflict with a law or regulation or an internal policy. It is vital for leaders to create a safe environment for employees to raise questions about risk related decisions. Those kinds of questions can lead to a new review or analysis that may result in a different decision. Risks should be evaluated against our risk appetite and tolerance. And with this, we are creating a culture of balanced risk taking, which means that our attitudes about risk are changing and our behaviors are changing and our culture is beginning to change as well. In addition to this overall executive branch risk appetite statement, which is actually a 3 page document separate unto itself that you can have access to, of course, several departments have drafted risk appetite statements of their own. You can ask your supervisor or contact the Office of Risk Management Services for help in determining whether your department has a risk appetite statement of its own. Next, we'll talk about the county's enterprise risk register. We know that our operations come with inherent risks which need to be managed. And these can arise in conflict with our true north and values, or while we're seeking to fulfill that vision. The Enterprise Risk Register is a way of looking at risks across the whole county. It brings together our loss history, risk owners' perspectives, and the experiences of other agencies and our view of the future. Some departments have more detailed risk registers, and these documents help agencies identify and prioritize risks. They improve awareness and ownership of risk management at all levels of the county. An up to date copy of our current Enterprise Risk Register is available at the Enterprise Risk Management SharePoint site, and you can, of course, contact the Office of Risk Management Services with any questions or for other documents related to this. So next, let's talk about the Loss Control Fund. This is a biennial fund offered by the Office of Risk Management Services, and we assist agencies with your emergent challenges. A project can qualify for the fund if it addresses a risk that has potential liability consequences and could not be budgeted for in advance. The fund generally only helps with one-time projects, so not longer-term ongoing costs, because those costs should be integrated into existing budgets. So here are two examples where the fund has assisted with emergent challenges in the past. On the top picture here, we see a wastewater treatment operator training on how to adjust part of the treatment process using new technology, a mixed reality headset. This places the training in the actual work environment on the actual equipment, but without interrupting the working processes. Now, this application of technology won an award for digital transformation, and it's an important new way to ensure that our operators are well trained in how to respond to an emergency without having to disrupt operations. Now, what you also see there, that sign for Harborview Hall. So, as our facilities management division and the Department of Community and Human Services began the transformation of Harborview Hall into an overnight shelter for people experiencing homelessness, they encountered some unanticipated challenges related to the fire safety systems in the building. Now, the Loss Control Fund helped bridge this gap and help provide some funding to ensure that the teams could open that shelter safely and quickly. Now, a detailed frequently asked questions document and a link to the form to request loss control funds are available again at the Enterprise Risk Management SharePoint site, which we've referenced a couple times here, and should have a link around where you've accessed this video. And of course, you can always contact the Office of Risk Management Services with any questions. So, how do we know if we're getting this right? How do we know if we're succeeding? Well, in this case, we would know what's on the horizon, and we'd have a plan to address our risks and make the most of our opportunities. Hopefully, severe losses will become less frequent. And we also get to share lessons learned and what's working well across all of our agencies. If we're getting this right, we'll eventually be sharing risk ownership and responsibility for risks together as one King County. And if we're getting this right, we'll, of course, intentionally and thoughtfully take risks to pursue positive outcomes. We'll close out this discussion by talking about those more traditional areas of risk that we talked about at the outset: claims and insurance. For most risks, King County is self insured with additional high deductible policies to cover the worst case scenarios. What this means is that county funds pay for all but the most serious accidents, and even the most serious accidents have several $1 million of county funds paid before insurance companies pay anything. Now, this may feel like a risky position to be in, but it's not uncommon among large organizations, especially ones in public service like King County. But one of the benefits of this position is that when we make an improvement in our safety, which prevents an accident, the county retains the greatest benefit from that improvement. We have a serious and vested interest in keeping our employees and the public safe from harm. Now, the Office of Risk Management Services also really wants to hear from you when things change or when you're having a problem that we might be able to help with. We have special, specific insurance policies for certain kinds of equipment, like things related to aircraft or watercraft. When we have new assets in these areas, risk management needs to know as soon as possible. Similarly, when a county agency no longer has specialized equipment or certain kinds of vehicles, we can save money by changing our policies that used to insure those assets. Now, keeping risk management up to date with these changes is important. We also have very specific considerations for how drone aircraft are used and very specific insurance requirements for contractors in this area. So please reach out to risk management to ensure that the work in that area is planned in a way that protects the King County's interests. And of course, the Office of Risk Management Services is glad to help if you would like any assistance in identifying an issue for loss control, identifying and evaluating risks, or more information about the county's risk appetite. Now, when a member of the public has an issue where they've experienced a loss, such as an injury or property damage, and they believe King County is responsible, a claim for damages is often the correct route to remedy their issue. To file a claim for damages, the person who owns the damaged property or who's experienced the injury can go to kingcounty.gov/claims. There, they will find clear instructions on how to file a claim for damages and many options for filing. A claimant can submit a claim through Risk Management's web-based portal. They can also download a fillable PDF for completion and emailing to fileaclaim@kingcounty.gov. They can also print a claim form and complete it by hand, either to email it or to mail it to the Risk Management Office. We also accept hand delivery of claims if necessary. Now, claims for damages forms are available in more than a dozen languages in fillable PDFs, PDFs for handwritten completion, and in Microsoft Word document format, which is sometimes helpful for customers who use screen reader technology. We also have interpreter services available as needed to assist claimants through our phone lines. So next steps for you. First, talk with your peers, your direct reports, and your supervisors about the risks that you own in your area of responsibility. Identify those opportunities for you to optimize the risks that you own or the risks that are out on your horizon. And then use that risk value curve and our risk appetite statement in your decision making. Really, a core element of this is knowing that risk is not always something to avoid or minimize. We need to be nuanced and flexible in our approach. And one of the most powerful things that we can tell ourselves and one another is that we're not alone. We have tools to help you manage the risks that you own and the decisions you need to make. So we're here to help. We're glad to be here for you. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video and learn more about our risk management program here in King County. If you have further questions, you can always reach out to risk.management@kingcounty.gov, and we'll get you to the right person to answer your question or address your need.